A waitress yells at a millionaire, "Don't eat that, your wife put something in your food." Upon confronting his wife, he was paralyzed to realize what she was doing.
Hello and welcome to 80s Love Stories, where I, your favorite narrator, Christopher, bring you an exciting love story straight from the unforgettable 1980s. Get ready for a journey full of nostalgia and incredible twists. Today's story is truly remarkable, with an ending that's sure to touch your heart and leave you amazed. So, stay with me until the very last moment. I hope this experience is unforgettable for you, and may God bless you and your family. Now, let's get started. The crystal chandelier cast a warm glow over the elegant dining room of Le Petit Jardin, the most exclusive French restaurant in Beverly Hills. It was 1985, and Richard Hamilton adjusted his silk tie as he waited for his wife Victoria to return from powdering her nose. The restaurant buzzed with the quiet murmur of wealthy patrons, clinking crystal, and the soft melodies of a jazz quartet playing in the corner. Richard watched the ice slowly melt in his scotch, his mind drifting to the growing distance between him and Victoria over the past year. Their 10th wedding anniversary dinner tonight felt more like a business obligation than a celebration of love. At 45, Richard had built his real estate empire from nothing, but lately he wondered if success had cost him something more valuable. Catherine Martinez wiped down the bar counter, stealing glances at the handsome businessman sitting alone at table 7. In her 6 months working at Le Petit Jardin, she had served the Hamiltons several times. There was always tension between them, like a rubber band stretched too tight. But tonight felt different. Victoria seemed especially agitated, her usual poise replaced by nervous energy. When Victoria had ordered their meals earlier, Catherine noticed her hands trembling slightly. "The duck confit for my husband," Victoria had said, then hesitated before adding, "And I'll have the salmon." Something in her voice made Catherine uneasy. Now, as Victoria emerged from the ladies' room, Catherine observed her pulling something from her clutch purse, a small vial that caught the light. With practiced subtlety, Victoria leaned over Richard's plate, her diamond bracelet glinting as she moved her hand over his food. Catherine's heart began to race. She had seen enough crime shows to recognize what was happening. Without thinking, she rushed from behind the bar toward their table. "Mr. Hamilton, stop!" she called out just as he raised his fork. "Don't eat that. Your wife put something in it." The restaurant fell silent. Richard's fork clattered against fine china as he turned to stare at Victoria, who had gone deathly pale. Her fingers clutched her throat, where a string of pearls gleamed against her skin. "Victoria." Richard's voice was barely a whisper. "What did you do?" Victoria's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her carefully made-up face. "I couldn't take it anymore," she choked out. "The other women, the lies. I know about all of them. Richard, every single affair." Richard sat frozen, the color draining from his face. The other diners pretended not to stare, but their forks remained suspended in mid-air as the drama unfolded. "I was going to make it look like food poisoning," Victoria continued, her voice rising hysterically. "The insurance would have taken care of me. After 10 years of humiliation, I deserved that much." "Madame, I must ask you to come with me," said Jean-Pierre, the maître d' appearing at her side. 2 security guards materialized behind him. As they led Victoria away, she turned back one last time. "I loved you once," she said to Richard. "Remember that." The restaurant slowly returned to its usual rhythm of quiet conversation and tinkling glasses. Richard sat motionless, staring at his untouched duck confit. Catherine hesitated, then approached his table. "Can I get you anything, Mr. Hamilton?" she asked softly. He looked up at her with haunted eyes. "You saved my life," he said. "Why?" Catherine tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Because it was the right thing to do. No one deserves to die, no matter what they've done." Richard nodded slowly. "I would have deserved it, though. Victoria was right about everything." He pushed away his plate. "I've made such a mess of things." "It's never too late to start over," Catherine said. She pulled out her order pad and pen. "How about I bring you something else to eat? The chef makes an amazing coq au vin." A ghost of a smile crossed Richard's face. "Thank you, miss." Catherine Martinez. Thank you, Catherine. I think I'd like that. As she walked back to the kitchen, Catherine felt Richard's eyes following her. She told herself it was just gratitude, nothing more. But something had shifted between them in that moment of crisis, something neither of them could have predicted. The police arrived shortly after taking statements from everyone involved. Victoria was arrested and later admitted to purchasing poison from a shady source in Mexico. She would eventually serve 5 years in prison for attempted murder. That night marked the beginning of the end of the Hamiltons' marriage, but it was also the beginning of something else, something that would start with simple gratitude and slowly bloom into something deeper. For now, though, Catherine simply brought Richard his coq au vin, their fingers brushing briefly as she set down the plate. In the soft glow of the chandelier, with Billie Holiday's velvet voice floating through the air, neither of them could have guessed how their lives would intertwine in the months to come. The summer of 1985 brought a heat wave to Los Angeles that seemed to slow everything down, except for the rumors surrounding Richard Hamilton. The tabloids couldn't get enough of the story. Prominent real estate mogul, attempted murder by his socialite wife, and the waitress who saved his life. They camped outside Le Petit Jardin, hoping to catch a glimpse of Catherine Martinez, but she kept her head down and focused on her work. Richard threw himself into finalizing his divorce, spending long hours with his lawyers in air-conditioned offices, while radio stations played Madonna's Material Girl, an irony not lost on him as Victoria's attorneys fought for half his fortune. He found himself returning to Le Petit Jardin several times a week, always requesting Catherine's section. Their conversation started small. Comments about the weather, the music playing on the restaurant's sound system, the latest movies showing at the Beverly Cinema. Richard discovered that Catherine was taking night classes in business administration at UCLA, working double shifts to pay her tuition. She learned that he spent his weekends restoring classic cars, a hobby he'd all but abandoned during his marriage. One evening, as Catherine cleared his table, Richard noticed she was humming along to Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time, playing softly in the background. "You like this song?" he asked. Catherine blushed slightly. "I know it's not exactly fine dining music, but Jean-Pierre lets us play the radio after the dinner rush." She stacked his plates with practiced efficiency. "My roommate and I went to her concert at the Forum last month. It was amazing. I'm more of a Sinatra man myself," Richard admitted, adjusting his cufflinks, a nervous habit Catherine had noticed. "Though my daughter Sarah keeps trying to get me to listen to something called Duran Duran." "Your daughter has good taste," Catherine laughed. "How is she doing? With everything, I mean—" Richard's smile faded. Sarah, 16, and struggling with her mother's actions, had moved in with him after Victoria's arrest. "She's adjusting. It's not easy being a teenager when your family drama is splashed across the National Enquirer. If she ever needs someone to talk to," Catherine offered hesitantly, "sometimes it's easier with a stranger." Their eyes met, and Richard felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the summer heat. "You're not exactly a stranger anymore, Catherine." The moment was interrupted by Jean-Pierre clearing his throat nearby. Catherine quickly finished clearing the table and hurried back to the kitchen, her heart pounding. She couldn't be feeling this way about a customer, especially not Richard Hamilton. The gossip columnists would have a field day, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. One night in late August, Catherine left work to find her yellow Volkswagen Beetle refusing to start. The parking lot was empty, except for a familiar black Mercedes. "Car trouble," Richard's voice came from behind her. He'd stayed late, supposedly reviewing real estate documents at his usual table. "It's probably just the alternator," Catherine sighed, pushing damp hair off her forehead. "I'll have to call a tow truck." "Let me give you a ride home," Richard offered. Seeing her hesitation, he added, "Please, you saved my life. The least I can do is save you from the LA bus system." The Mercedes' air conditioning was a relief after the stuffy kitchen. As they cruised down Sunset Boulevard, the city lights blurred past like stars. The radio played Careless Whisper by George Michael, and Catherine found herself stealing glances at Richard's profile. "Would you like to stop for coffee?" he asked suddenly. "I know a place that's still open. Best apple pie in Los Angeles." Catherine thought of all the reasons she should say no, the gossip, the class difference, the fact that his divorce wasn't even final yet, but something in his voice, a note of loneliness that matched her own, made her nod. The diner was a chrome and neon throwback to the 1950s, nearly empty at this late hour. They settled into a red vinyl booth, ordered coffee and pie, and talked. Really talked. Without the formality of the restaurant between them, Richard spoke about his humble beginnings, working construction to pay for college. Catherine shared her dreams of opening her own restaurant someday. "You should do it," Richard said, his eyes intense. "You have good instincts about people. That's half of running a successful business." "Right now I can barely afford my textbooks," Catherine laughed, but there was a hint of bitterness in it. "I could help," Richard started, then immediately regretted it as he saw her expression change. "I'm sorry, that was presumptuous." "I don't want your money, Mr. Hamilton," Catherine said quietly, "and I think you know that." The ride to her apartment was silent except for the radio, now playing Every Breath You Take by the Police. When they arrived, Richard walked her to her door, maintaining a respectful distance. "Thank you for the ride. And the coffee," Catherine said, fishing for her keys. "Catherine," Richard's voice was soft, "I want you to know that I would never presume. What you did for me that night, it wasn't just saving my life. It was making me see how far I'd strayed from the person I wanted to be." She turned to face him, her heart in her throat. "And who is that person, Richard?" Before he could answer, a door opened down the hall, and Mrs. Ramirez from 3B emerged to walk her dog. The moment shattered like glass. Catherine quickly unlocked her door and slipped inside, leaving Richard standing in the hallway, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Later that night, lying in her narrow bed, Catherine listened to the distant sound of traffic and tried to convince herself that what she was feeling wasn't real. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Richard's face in the diner, illuminated by neon, looking at her like she was something precious and unexpected. Meanwhile, across town in his Bel Air mansion, Richard sat in his study, a glass of scotch untouched beside him. On his desk lay divorce papers and real estate contracts, but his mind was filled with the sound of Catherine's laughter and the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her dreams. Both of them knew they were standing on the edge of something that could either be wonderful or disastrous, but neither of them could walk away. September 1985 brought the first hints of autumn to Los Angeles, though you'd hardly notice in the perpetual sunshine. Richard Hamilton's divorce proceedings dragged on, making headlines in the society pages. His visits to Le Petit Jardin became less frequent. The paparazzi had become too persistent, endangering the restaurant's exclusive atmosphere. Catherine found herself missing their quiet conversations, though she tried to convince herself it was better this way. She threw herself into her studies, spending her breaks between tables highlighting passages in her business textbooks. The other waitresses whispered about her, wondering if she was secretly dating the millionaire, but Catherine ignored them. One Tuesday evening, as she arranged silverware for the dinner service, Jean-Pierre approached with an unusual request. "Mr. Hamilton has reserved the private dining room for tonight," he said, straightening his bow tie. "He specifically requested you as server." Catherine's hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her apron. The private dining room was tucked away from prying eyes, usually reserved for celebrity couples or discreet business meetings. She found Richard already seated, wearing a charcoal grey suit that made his eyes look stormy. "I hope this is okay," he said, standing as she entered. "I wanted to talk without photographers lurking in the bushes." "Of course," Catherine replied professionally, though her pulse quickened. "Would you like to hear tonight's specials?" "Catherine?" Richard's voice was soft. "Please sit down, just for a moment." She hesitated, then took the chair he offered. On the restaurant's sound system, Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton were singing "Islands in the Stream." "My divorce will be final next month," Richard said. "Victoria's lawyers are satisfied with the settlement. Sarah," she's starting to smile again, "and I find myself thinking about the future for the first time in a long while." "That's wonderful," Catherine said carefully, studying the elaborate place setting before her. I've been keeping my distance because I didn't want to complicate things, but I think about you more than I should. Mr. Hamilton, Richard, please. Richard, she corrected, finally meeting his gaze. I think about you too, but this, whatever this is, it could never work. Look at our worlds. Look at who we are. I look at who we are every day, he replied. I see a woman who works harder than anyone I know, who's brilliant and kind and saved my life without a thought for herself. And I see a man who's trying to be worthy of that kindness. Before Catherine could respond, there was a commotion in the main dining room. Through the partially open door, she glimpsed Sarah Hamilton, tears streaming down her face, pushing past the maitre d'. Daddy! Sarah burst into the private dining room, then stopped short at the sight of Catherine. Her mascara-streaked face hardened. So it's true. You're dating the waitress. Sarah, honey, we're just talking. Richard stood, reaching for his daughter. Mom tried to kill you, and now you're replacing her with the help. Sarah's voice cracked. I hate you. I hate both of you. She fled the room, her sobs echoing through the restaurant. Richard looked torn, his hand still extended toward the empty doorway. Go, Catherine said softly. She needs you. He caught her hand for a moment, squeezing it gently. I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted. I know. Go to her. After Richard left, Catherine sat alone in the private dining room, listening to air supplies making love out of nothing at all drift through the speakers. Everything felt impossibly complicated. She thought of her father, who'd worked as a gardener all his life, and what he would say about her feelings for a millionaire. The gossip intensified after that night. Someone had filmed Sarah's outburst on their brand-new camcorder, and grainy footage appeared on the local news. Catherine's roommate recorded it on their VCR, though Catherine couldn't bear to watch it. She started taking different shifts at the restaurant, working lunches instead of dinners. She threw herself into her studies, spending weekends at the library instead of wondering if Richard would visit. But late at night, when Whitney Houston sang Saving All My Love for You on her clock radio, Catherine would touch her hand where Richard had held it, remembering the warmth of his fingers and the look in his eyes when he'd said he thought about her. October arrived, bringing Santa Ana winds that made everyone edgy. Catherine was walking to her car one evening when she heard footsteps behind her. Turning, she found herself face to face with Sarah Hamilton. The teenager looked different from that night in the restaurant, more composed, though her eyes were still haunted. She wore a Tears for Fears concert t-shirt under a denim jacket covered in buttons. I've been waiting for you, Sarah said. We need to talk. The parking lot behind Le Petit Jardin was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the rustling of palm trees in the October wind. Catherine looked at Sarah Hamilton, noting how much the girl resembled her father around the eyes. Let's sit, Catherine suggested, gesturing to a nearby bench. The same bench where she often took her breaks, reading textbooks under the glow of the security light. Sarah sat, fidgeting with the Madonna rubber bracelets on her wrist. I've been horrible to you, she said finally, and to Dad. I was so angry about everything with Mom, and then seeing him with you in that private room. Nothing happened, Catherine said gently. Your father and I were just talking. I know that now. Sarah pulled her denim jacket tighter. I visited Mom last weekend. In prison, she's different. Calmer, maybe. She told me what really happened that night, how you stopped her. She looked up at Catherine. Thank you for saving my dad. Catherine's throat tightened. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't. Sarah's voice was firm. Most people would have looked the other way. It was brave. She paused, picking at a loose thread on her jacket. Mom also told me about Dad's affairs, how he hurt her. Is that why you've been avoiding him? The question caught Catherine off guard. It's complicated, Sarah. Your father is a good man who made mistakes, but our worlds are very different. Because he's rich and you're not, Sarah scoffed. God, that's so 1950s. This is 1985. Madonna married Sean Penn, and he's way richer than her. Despite herself, Catherine laughed. I don't think Madonna and Sean Penn are the best example of a healthy relationship. Okay, bad example, Sarah grinned, then grew serious again. But I've never seen Dad like this. He mopes around the house listening to sad songs on the radio. Yesterday I caught him watching An Officer and a Gentleman and crying. Sarah, just give him a chance. He's trying to be better, and I think you make him want to be better." In the distance, a car horn honked. Catherine looked at Sarah, seeing not just Richard's eyes, but his vulnerability, his capacity for growth. "I can't promise anything," Catherine said slowly. "But maybe we could start with dinner sometime, all three of us." Sarah's face lit up. "Really? There's this new place in the valley that serves awesome Mexican food, way better than this fancy French stuff." As if on cue, Jean-Pierre stuck his head out the back door. "Catherine, your break ended 5 minutes ago." "Coming." She stood, smoothing her uniform. "Sarah, thank you for coming to talk to me." "Thank you for listening." Sarah hesitated, then gave Catherine a quick, fierce hug before disappearing into the night. The next evening, Catherine found a package waiting for her at the hostess station. Inside was a cassette tape with a handwritten track list. Every breath you take, time after time, islands in the stream, all the songs that had played in the background of their conversations. The last track was Making Love Out of Nothing at All. Richard's business card was tucked inside, and on the back he'd written, "Some songs make more sense when you've lived them. Dinner sometime?" Catherine slipped the tape into her purse, a smile tugging at her lips. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was time to stop letting fear of their differences stand in the way of whatever this could be. That night, as she drove home in her newly repaired Volkswagen, she played the tape. The familiar songs filled her car, and for the first time, she let herself really feel what they were saying about love, about taking chances, about the possibility of something real. At a red light, she pulled out Richard's card and traced her finger over his handwriting. The Los Angeles night sparkled around her, full of promise and possibility. When the light turned green, she knew exactly what she was going to do. The Valley restaurant was nothing like Le Petit Jardin. Instead of crystal chandeliers, colorful paper lanterns hung from the ceiling. The jukebox played Tina Turner's What's Love Got to Do With It, while servers in casual uniforms carried massive plates of enchiladas through the crowded dining room. Catherine felt oddly nervous as she approached the table where Richard and Sarah waited. She'd changed 3 times before settling on a turquoise dress she'd bought at a vintage store on Melrose. Richard stood as she approached, looking slightly out of place in his expensive suit. "You came," he said softly, relief evident in his voice. "I did," Catherine smiled, taking the seat beside Sarah. "Though I have to admit, I never thought I'd see Richard Hamilton in a place with plastic menus." "Dad tried to make reservations at Spargo." Sarah rolled her eyes. "I told him that was totally bogus." Their waiter arrived. A teenager with a Madonna haircut who did a double take when she recognized Richard from the newspapers. But if she was surprised to see the millionaire sharing chips and salsa with his daughter and a waitress, she didn't show it. As they ate, the awkwardness slowly melted away. Sarah dominated the conversation, telling stories about her drama club's upcoming production of Grease and her friend Jenny's new breakdancing obsession. Richard watched his daughter with obvious pride, occasionally catching Catherine's eye with a warm glance that made her heart skip. "Oh my God, I love this song," Sarah exclaimed, as Cyndi Lauper's "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" started playing. She jumped up. "I'm going to put more quarters in the jukebox. You two behave while I'm gone." Once they were alone, Richard turned to Catherine. "Thank you for coming tonight. I know it wasn't an easy decision." "Sarah came to see me," Catherine admitted. "She's an amazing girl, Richard. She has such a big heart." "She gets that from her mother," Richard said quietly. "Victoria wasn't always what she became. The affairs, the neglect, that was all my fault. I got caught up in success, in power. I forgot what really mattered. But you're trying to make it right." Catherine reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "That counts for something." Their fingers intertwined, and for a moment the busy restaurant faded away. Then Sarah returned, pretending not to notice their clasped hands as she slid back into her seat. "I put on some Journey," she announced. "Dad, didn't you say that was your favorite band when you were young, like a million years ago?" "Very funny," Richard released Catherine's hand to playfully ruffle his daughter's hair. "I'll have you know, Journey is still cool." "Sure, Dad, whatever you say." The evening ended too quickly. In the parking lot, Sarah hugged Catherine tightly. "This was awesome. We should do it again. Maybe next time we can go to the movies. The Breakfast Club is playing at the mall." "I'd like that," Catherine said, touched by the girl's enthusiasm. Richard walked Catherine to her car, while Sarah waited by the Mercedes. The night air was warm, heavy with the scent of jasmine from a nearby hedge. "Catherine," Richard's voice was serious, "I know there are 1,000 reasons why this might not work. The gossip, the class difference, my complicated past. But I can't stop thinking about what you said that first night, that it's never too late to start over." He took her hands in his, and Catherine felt the same electricity she'd felt when their fingers touched across the table. "I want to start over," he continued. "With you, if you'll let me. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility." Catherine looked up at him, seeing the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, the same hope she felt whenever she thought about him, whenever she heard one of their songs on the radio. "Possibility," she repeated softly. "I think I'd like that." Behind them, Sarah called out, "Dad, stop being romantic and let's go. Miami Vice starts in 20 minutes. They both laughed, breaking the moment's tension. As Catherine drove home that night, she felt lighter somehow, as if a weight she hadn't known she was carrying had been lifted. The future was uncertain, but for the first time she was ready to embrace that uncertainty. She didn't notice the dark car that pulled out behind her, following at a discreet distance, didn't see the camera lens glinting in the darkness, capturing her smile as she hummed along to the radio. Tomorrow's headlines were already being written, but tonight belonged to possibility. The morning headlines were brutal. "Hamilton's new love, from poison to passion," screamed the National Enquirer, complete with grainy photos of their dinner. Richard's business partners called emergency meetings, concerned about the company's image. Catherine arrived at work to find Jean-Pierre waiting with a grim expression. "The press are camped outside," he said. "Perhaps you should take some time off until this situation resolves itself." Catherine felt her world shrinking. She'd known there would be talk, but this level of scrutiny was overwhelming. As she gathered her belongings from her locker, a familiar voice echoed from the kitchen. "You can't fire her." Victoria Hamilton stood in the doorway, looking remarkably elegant despite her prison jumpsuit and handcuffs. Two guards flanked her. "I have a statement to make," Jean-Pierre sputtered. "Madam Hamilton, this is highly irregular." "I'm being transferred to a minimum security facility," Victoria announced. "But before I go, I need to clear something up." She turned to Catherine. "You saved Richard's life, not because you wanted him, you didn't even know him then. You did it because it was right." Catherine nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. "I was sick," Victoria continued. "Not just that night, but for years. Watching Richard's affairs, his lies, it poisoned me long before I tried to poison him." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm getting help now, therapy, medication, and I want to say thank you for stopping me from doing something unforgivable." The kitchen staff had gathered, watching the scene unfold. Victoria addressed them all. "Catherine Martinez is not some gold digger. She's the reason my daughter still has a father. Anyone who says different will hear from my lawyers, and believe me, they're very good." With that, Victoria allowed the guards to lead her away. As she passed Catherine, she whispered, "Take care of them. They're worth it." The press got wind of Victoria's statement within hours. The narrative shifted. "Attempted murderer endorses ex's new romance," read the evening papers. The reporters outside Le Petit Jardin dwindled, seeking new scandals to chase. That evening, Catherine found Richard waiting by her car. "I heard about Victoria," he said. "Are you okay?" "Shouldn't I be asking you that?" Catherine leaned against the Volkswagen. "She was your wife for 10 years. And I never really knew her until today." Richard moved closer. "Catherine, I'm sorry about the press, the gossip. If you want to walk away." "Is that what you want?" "No." His voice was firm. "I want to take you to dinner. Real dinner, not hiding in private rooms or valley restaurants. I want to hold your hand in public and not care who sees. I want..." A car horn blared as Sarah pulled up in Richard's Mercedes, which she was learning to drive. "Dad, you said you'd help me practice parallel parking." Richard laughed. "I want it all, Catherine. The complications, the chaos, the beautiful mess of building something real. But only if you want it too." Catherine looked at this man who had stumbled into her life through a near tragedy, who was trying so hard to be better, to be worthy. She thought of Sarah's fierce hugs and Victoria's unexpected blessing. She thought of all the reasons to say no and the one overwhelming reason to say yes. "I want it too," she said softly. "All of it." Sarah honked again. "Come on. The driving instructor says I need 10 more hours of practice. We should probably rescue Los Angeles from my daughter's driving." Richard grinned. "Join us." Catherine nodded, and as she climbed into the back seat of the Mercedes, she felt like she was finally where she belonged. The sun was setting over the Hollywood Hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. On the radio, REO Speedwagon sang about not wanting to fight this feeling anymore. Sarah attempted a wobbly parallel park, while Richard offered patient instruction. Catherine watched them, these two people who had somehow become her family, and smiled. Sometimes the most unexpected turns in life led exactly where you were meant to be. December 1985 transformed Los Angeles into a twinkling wonderland of Christmas lights. At Le Petit Jardin, where Catherine still insisted on working despite Richard's protests, holly and mistletoe adorned the chandeliers. She'd finally agreed to cut back to part-time while finishing her business degree, but something about the restaurant still felt like home. On Christmas Eve, after her final shift, Catherine found Richard waiting in the empty dining room. The restaurant had closed early, though soft music still played through the speakers. "Stevie Wonder's I Just Called to Say I Love You." "What are you doing here?" she asked, untying her apron. "I thought we were meeting at your house for dinner with Sarah." "We are," Richard smiled, "but first I wanted to show you something." He led her through the kitchen to the back office, where Jean-Pierre normally did the books. On the desk lay a thick folder of legal documents. "What's this?" Catherine picked up the top page. "The lease for a restaurant space on Robertson Boulevard," Richard said quietly. "And a business loan application, already approved." "The down payment is your Christmas bonus from Le Petit Jardin," Jean-Pierre insisted. "Said you were the best employee he's ever had." Catherine's hands trembled as she flipped through the papers. "Richard, I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's not a gift," he said firmly. "It's an investment. In you. In your dream." He took her hands in his. "You've spent the last few months showing me how to be a better man, a better father. Let me help you build something of your own." "But my degree, I still have a semester left." "The space won't be ready for renovation until June. Perfect timing for a brilliant new graduate to open her first restaurant." Tears spilled down Catherine's cheeks. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Richard whispered. "Say you'll take this chance. Say you believe in yourself as much as I believe in you." Catherine looked up at him, this man who had transformed from a troubled customer into the love of her life. In the background, the restaurant's sound system had switched to Time After Time. "Yes," she breathed. Richard's smile lit up his entire face. He reached into his pocket and pulled out one more document. "There's something else. Sarah's Christmas present to us, though I think she had help from her mother's lawyers." Catherine read the paper, her eyes widening. It was a petition for Victoria to officially relinquish all claims to Richard's estate, clearing the way for any future marriage. "I'm not proposing," Richard said quickly. "Not yet, we've got time for that. But I wanted you to know that whatever happens, whatever we build together, it's ours. No shadows, no complications." Catherine set the papers down and stepped closer to him. The Christmas lights from the dining room cast a soft glow through the office window. Their song was playing, the one from that first night in his car. "Richard," she said softly, "I think it's time for you to kiss me." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle as a whisper. When their lips finally met, it felt like coming home. All the months of waiting, of careful steps and building trust, had led to this moment. The kiss deepened, and Catherine felt every wall she'd built around her heart crumble. They broke apart at the sound of someone clearing their throat. Sarah stood in the doorway, grinning. Finally, I was wondering if you two would ever get around to that. But can we go home now? I'm starving. And all the good Christmas movies are about to start on TV. Richard laughed, keeping one arm around Catherine's waist. Yes, boss. Let's go home. As they walked to the car, the Los Angeles night was alive with possibility. Catherine thought about the restaurant space waiting for her touch, about the family she'd found in the most unexpected way, about the love that had bloomed from the ashes of betrayal. "What are you thinking about?" Richard asked as they drove through the decorated streets. Catherine smiled, squeezing his hand. "That sometimes the best Christmas presents don't come wrapped in paper and bows." In the back seat, Sarah made gagging noises. "You guys are so cheesy, but I love it." They all laughed, and as they headed home together, Catherine knew that this was just the beginning of their story. There would be challenges ahead, opening the restaurant, blending their lives, navigating their different worlds. But they would face it all together, stronger for the journey that had brought them here. Above them, the Hollywood sign glowed against the night sky, a reminder that sometimes the best love stories aren't on the movie screens, they're the ones we live, one brave choice at a time. Thank you for watching today's story. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to relive the magic of the 80s every day with our heartfelt stories. May God bless you and your family. And don't forget to click on the video popping up on the screen right now. It's another totally rad story you won't want to miss. See you in the next video, and stay awesome.